We'd like to thank the following sponsors for helping provide this video.
All right, welcome everybody.
Welcome.
We're going to do something incredibly special tonight. We're going to do something that has never happened at Agile New England before. We're going to design a new culture together tonight. Okay? We're going to kind of be honest with each other about the default culture that maybe you work in or maybe that you were brought into when you joined the organization that you're with. We're going to be honest with each other that maybe that culture isn't getting you everything you want. Maybe it's not getting you the results you want or the happiness you want or the success you want with your teams. And we're going to talk about one way to design a better culture for yourself and for the teams you work with. We're going to plant the seeds of that new culture. We're not going to just design it and talk about it. We're actually going to do it together tonight. We're going to practice it together. And to be able to do that, we're going to make some agreements with each other. And for starters, these agreements are, while we're together in this room, while we're within these 4-ish walls, and for the next hour or so, we're going to practice these ideas. We're going to create a space of non-negativity and no negation. Okay? So we're going to create a space of positivity while we're here together for the next hour or so. And as a learning strategy, as a way to sort of get these ideas, as a way to make sure that these ideas are, well, that you can hear these ideas and even try to practice and understand these ideas, try this as a learning strategy. Pretend. Pretend these are good ideas. Pretend that this makes sense to you. Pretend that you're curious about them. Pretend that you want to know more. Okay, so just pretend you want this, but only for the next hour and only while we're inside this room. After that and outside this room, you can do whatever you want. Okay? So I'm Richard Kasperowski. I am a co-founder of the Greatness Guild. We're a group of people who care very much about sharing these ideas to build great teams and get great results. We do stuff like this. We talk to people. We to teach people the core protocols is one way to build a culture of great teams and great results. I work mostly as an Agile trainer and coach. And I help run the Agile Dojo that we do here. I helped put together the Agile Games Conference, which was incredibly fun. Another thing I do is I volunteer as a mentor at a coder dojo for kids, which is incredibly fun and rewarding. I've also written a book. I have a few copies of it. We'll put one of these, at least one of these, in the raffle later on. So a book about the core program. So I'm gonna check in, both really happy and really afraid. I'm really happy that I get to do this tonight. I'm really happy that so many people came out to join me tonight, to join each other tonight. I'm grateful that the people at Agile New England invited me to do this tonight. And I'm really afraid. I've never shown these notes to anybody in public before, and these are really revealing. I'm sharing these notes because they kind of help me explain why this is important to me. This is important to me because I first heard about the core protocols about 3.5 years ago, and it really transformed me. This idea of intentional culture design really changed the way I interact with people, even changed the people I interact with. And it really helped me move myself and help other people, help the teams that I work with as a coach, move toward better teams with better results. I'm hoping that by sharing this with you tonight, maybe you can get the same kind of positive result in your life or with your teams. So just for a moment, think about the best team you've ever been on. Okay? Could be a work team, could be a sports team, could be a church group, any team you've ever been on. What was the best team you've ever been on in your life? And maybe you can think of one of the great teams you've been on, if you've ever been on a great team. And then just answer this question to yourself. How much better was it than other teams you've been on? Right, so sometimes we ask people this question and they say it was twice as good as other teams, or 5 times as good, or 10 times as good. And that's really cool. So like, why wouldn't you want that all the time, to be on a team that's that good, right? And then, well, and this is why we're focusing on teams. This is one of the reasons we're focusing on teams. This chart, I made up this chart myself. The numbers come from Jeff Sutherland's most recent book. He talks about 2 different studies about individual performance and team performance. And one of the things he talks about is in a study of computer science students at Yale, individual students were as much as 10 times better as each other. The best students were 10 times better than the worst students in a survey of the CS students. The best students got their programming assignments done in a certain amount of time, and the worst students, it took them 10 times as long. So that's where the 10x number comes from there. So that's good. You can have individuals who are 10 times better than other people, and you definitely want those people on your team. I want those people on my team. And then in another study, hundreds of teams at IBM, or an IBM study of hundreds of teams. And they look at the results of the teams. And the difference between the best and the worst teams in that study, the same kind of thing, how long it took them to get the job done, was 2,000 times. Right, so the best teams are 2,000 times better than the worst teams in that study. And this is one reason to focus on optimizing teams versus just optimizing for the best people on your team. You really want the best teams so you can get those kinds of results. The website Gama Sutra, I'm actually not sure how to pronounce it. They're a website for video game developers, the video game industry. They did a study of something like 300 or 400 video game software companies. And they looked at all different characteristics of what could make a team, what could make a software result better or worse. What correlates to the best software results? And it turned out that the one thing that was a correlator, that was a predictor of the best results, was that teams were in a state of shared vision. That the best teams sort of had like their minds connected to each other. There was no friction between team members. They had a unified purpose. They worked together seamlessly. They just had a shared purpose. They operated like a hive mind almost. They just operated as one. And it wasn't like they took 7 or 8 or 10 people and just added their brains together to get 7 or 8 times as much as one person. It was like they multiplied each other's effect, maybe up to that 2,000 times level. Right, so another reason to look at great teams, and one of the goals to get to a great team is this idea of shared vision. Informal surveys, teams in a state of shared vision are at least 10 times better, people self-report, than teams that are not. So this is something maybe we want to go for. And related to that is an idea that if you're a leader of teams, the thing you're really building, the product that you're building, is great teams. If you're a leader, if you're a manager, a tech leader, a director, a VP, the product that you need to build is a great team. And the way you do that is by thinking about the culture of the team. How do you get the team into that state of shared vision? What are the practices and behaviors that get the team into that state of shared vision, that collective mind? This chart is from that same Gama Sutra survey. One of the things they looked at was what methodology do you use to build your products? And in their seemingly good, very nicely regressioned data set, turned out that there was no difference within the margin of error about what methodology you use. It didn't matter whether you used Agile or Scrum as what you say your Agile is, or ad hoc or something else. Pretty much got the same results across the board. The one thing that made results different, the one thing that led to successful teams, was shared vision and various other culture attributes of great teams. So you need more than Agile to have great teams. And Peter Drucker, famous management consultant, author, and so on, you can use any methodology you want. You can use any strategy or tactics you want. You can bring in whatever tools you want. But ultimately, it's culture that makes the difference. And that's why this is important, what we're doing tonight. So we're going to talk about the core protocols as one way to build that state of shared vision in a team, as one way to intentionally design and practice a better culture for your teams. The story of the core protocols is this. These nice people, Jim McCarthy and Michelle McCarthy, they were working at Microsoft around 20 years ago. They took over the team that was building compilers at Microsoft. And the way they tell the story, there were something like 200 people on the team, mostly co-located, a few in other places. And as they took over, this was a team that was struggling. And they got everybody together in a room and they wanted to just figure out what projects were going on and what projects had a chance of succeeding. They got these 200 or so people together and they asked them to put together a list of projects that they were working on. And they got a list of 200 different projects. Right? So they had 200 people working on 200 different projects. And they figured out how to hone that down to the 1 or 2 projects that had a chance of really succeeding. They figured out how to work well together as a team. They built one really good product together. It was Visual C++. At the time, Visual C++ was a really big deal. And it just about put their competition out of business. Like, it just about put Borland out of business. It was so good. It was so superior to every other product that existed. And they were like, yeah, that's awesome. We built this great team. We're not really sure how. We're not even sure that we actually built this great team or if it just somehow happened. And we want to figure out whether we could do it again. We want to figure out if this is replicable, if this was an accident or something that other teams could do. They thought about maybe staying at Microsoft and trying this again. It took them 2 years with this team. Maybe they could take another team and spend a couple of years and see if it happens, and then another team and take a couple of years and see if they can do it again. But they wouldn't be able to study that many teams or try ideas on a lot of different teams. So instead they left Microsoft and they started up a consulting and training company. And what they do is, or what they did back then is they took teams into a laboratory and they would give them an assignment and 5 days to get it done. And they would watch what happens. They would see which teams succeed. And they kind of looked for the success patterns. What were the things that the successful teams did that got them there? So over the last 20 years, they've studied hundreds of teams with thousands of people, so they've studied a lot of teams. They've observed a lot of teams in their lab. And they've been able to sort of factor out the success patterns. They've been able to factor out the behavior patterns that seem to correlate or that lead to successful teams. And they've even started teaching these patterns to people. And when they teach them, the teams are successful. So they're pretty sure that these are replicable. It's possible to reproduce this state of shared vision. It's possible to reliably reproduce being on a great team that gets great results. And by great results, they mean they deliver a great product on time every time. And that's kind of what you want every team that you work on to do. So that's the story of the core protocols. They're these behavior patterns of successful teams. They've studied hundreds of teams in the lab. They've factored out the success patterns. And we've got these behavior patterns that we can all follow. They're kind of like software design patterns, but they're people behavior patterns. If you want to be on a successful team, you could try these behavior patterns. So the core protocols are these behavior patterns. There are 11 of them, 11 of these patterns. And the purpose of them is to quickly get you into a state of shared vision as a team, to quickly get you into that state of being one mind with no friction, to quickly get you into that state of being able to just get stuff done together really well and get the right stuff done together really well. I divide the 11 protocols into 5 categories. And these categories are kind of like themes of successful teams. So really successful teams, on really successful teams, there's freedom, there's autonomy. You can choose to be part of the team or not. You can choose what you do on the team. There's self-awareness. People on successful teams are self-aware of who they are, what their skills are, what they want, what skills they lack. There's connection between the people on the team. They're really well connected at many different levels. And there's productivity. They're really highly productive. That's kind of the purpose of a work team. And there's one special protocol to make sure that we're accurately following these behavior patterns to make sure that we're on a great team. All right, so we've got the core protocols, these 5 areas of protocols. We're going to use a couple of these tonight as part of designing a better culture, planting the seeds of a better culture, at least while we're here in the room. So first there's these ideas of freedom, right? On a great team, there's freedom. On a great team, there's autonomy. Nobody is coerced to do anything on a great team. There's no oppression of any kind. People are free to do what they want or free to not do it, free to do something else. And that kind of freedom is the basis of any great culture. That freedom is built into the core protocols in one way. They're free. They're licensed under the GPL. You can do what you want with them. You can take any of them, none of them, one of them, all of them. You can modify them. You do whatever you want. So the protocols themselves are free. The first protocol, the first behavior pattern or recipe that shows you how to do freedom is called pass. And it goes like this. Anytime you're with your team and you don't want to do something, you just say, I pass. And it's that easy. If you've made this agreement with each other that you use the pass behavior pattern, you just say, I pass, and that's it. Nobody asks you why you're passing. Nobody tries to coerce you into not passing, into going along with this thing you don't want to do. It's that easy. And nobody talks about you for having passed on something. It's just, I pass, and that's it. And if you decide later on that you want to do it, you want to participate, you say, I unpass, and then you're back in. And it's that easy. It could even be like if you're on a scrum team doing a daily scrum, and it's your turn, you can just say, I pass. Nobody can make you do something that you're not ready for or that you don't want to do in the moment. And then you might decide that you unpass, and you're back in. You talk about what you're doing with your team. So that's the first element of freedom. Second one is checkout. What checkout is about is making sure that when you're with your team, you're always engaged. And what that means is, well, there's going along with the core protocols, there's these things called the core commitments. One of them is that you commit to engaging when present. So that means when you're with your team, you're totally engaged with your team. You're not like aiming the top of your head at your teammates while you type email. While you're doing something else, you're not texting or doing something else. You're not daydreaming about something else. If at any time you can't engage with your team fully, or you can't, or there's something more important for you to do, you check out. And the way you check out is you say, I'm checking out, and you walk away. You leave the room, you close the door. And the same rules apply when you check out. When you check out, nobody tries to convince you not to check out. Nobody talks about you after you checked out. Nobody tries to coerce you to stay in. If you've made this agreement with each other that checkout is a good behavior pattern, then you just do it. And everybody understands that this is what you do, and the team's going to get better results. There's something better than I can do right now to help the team be successful. So I'm going to go do it. So these are the freedom protocols. So that's it. That's the basis of a great team is freedom. We've got freedom. We've got autonomy. We know from reading things like Dan Pink's book Drive, autonomy is really important for individual success. It's also really important for team success. All right, then we've got these protocols for self-awareness. The self-awareness protocols are around the idea that the atomic unit of a great team is a great person. So we've got some behavior patterns for self-aware people. First one is check-in. We'll talk about that in a moment. I'm actually not going to go into a lot of detail about most of the protocols. I gave you all a cheat sheet. And if you go to this website, thecoreprotocols.org, you can get all the details. But we've got a protocol called check-in, a behavior pattern called ask for help, a behavior pattern called personal alignment. We're going to do a couple of these right now. I'll just say for ask for help, it turns out that a behavior pattern of successful teams is they ask each other for help. So like it's safe enough that you can admit you don't know something and that you want to know it or that you want the help on something. And you get the help optionally. You don't force anybody to give you the help. You ask for the help and they can give it to you or not. And nobody forces help on you because then you don't have that freedom anymore. But let's try this. Fill in the blank. How do you feel right now? How are you doing?
I'd like you to be heaven.
Okay. And just check in with yourself to see if there's a particular emotion that you might be feeling right now. Pick one from this list. Just kind of check in with yourself. Identify one of these emotions within yourself right now, and maybe a reason that goes along with it, some explanation about why you feel that way. Yeah, and if you want on the handout, you could even fill in the blank with your pen or pencil. Okay, so that's actually the behavior pattern of successful teams called check-in. It's the protocol called check-in. And it goes like this. So these are protocols, recipes, behavior patterns. When the McCarthys wrote them down, they used this pattern language to write them down, kind of like the design patterns or the architecture patterns. And the way check-in works is if you do it by yourself, that's cool. If you do it with other people, which is often what you do, it goes like this. You say out loud, I feel blank. You fill in the blank with one of those, mad, sad, glad, or afraid. You could optionally say why you feel that way. You could explain it. You could even say I pass, right? Because we've got this freedom built in. So you don't have to do it. You can just say I pass. And you finish your transmission. It's really like a protocol. You transmit some information. You indicate that you're done by saying I'm in. And the people you're talking to indicate that they acknowledge your transmission. They act by saying, welcome. And it's kind of goofy, it's kind of weird, it feels a little odd sometimes. But you could pretend that it's a good idea, remember that one? and we could try it out. Let's actually try this out right now in groups of 3. Check in with each other. So share your check-in with each other. You know, try this recipe. You say, I feel, you explain why, maybe. You say, I'm in. They say, welcome. Try this in groups of 3. I'll start a timer for you.
You never take the productivity out of teams that are, fighting with each other. It was bad. It goes on out of my eyes, you know, something. Like to communicate saying hello, at least to say too much. How are you?
It's good to know your own personal emotional state. It's good to be self-aware. It's also good to connect with each other, and check in also helps you quickly connect with each other in sort of a scripted way, which makes it really safe and easy. So it makes it really safe and easy for people like me who aren't good at knowing my own emotional state and sharing it with other people. It helps me connect with other people. Question back there?
So I was confused about how is it going, like, let's say you're doing it with your Agile team, and your team typically already know each other, and perhaps they already work with each other for a while. So it's not like you're trying to break an ice. And how would it help them, and in what settings would you start doing it, and how would you use it after you did that? Because it looks silly. You imagine a team of engineers who are like, oh, let's play the game. And they're like, sure.
Yeah, sure.
So, like, how would you use that?
So how does this actually help? And it's not just an icebreaker. It's a great way to start any meeting. It's a great way to kind of instantly be aware of yourself and instantly connect with each other. So even if you already know each other, have you ever had a conversation with each other about, are you happy or sad or mad right now? Maybe, maybe not. With most engineering teams that I've been on, probably not. And certainly me, no, hardly ever. It's kind of like the only emotion that's acceptable at work is either happy, well, it's happy. You're not really allowed to be anything else. except for maybe the boss or somebody in sales who's allowed to be angry. But we're all angry sometimes. We're all happy sometimes. We're all sad sometimes. We're all afraid sometimes. And it's just the truth. It's just how it is. I learned from my friend Pat Arcady all about the limbic system. Pat's right over there. All about the limbic system and all about the amygdala and different parts of the brain and how these emotions just happen inside you. They happen within milliseconds and they change the way you behave. Like maybe you're afraid of something right now and your body goes into that flight or fight mode and you actually can't get any work done or you can't share your good ideas, you can't be creative anymore. It's good to share these with each other so that you can just connect fast, acknowledge that the feelings exist, acknowledge to each other and with each other that this stuff is going on, whether you want it to go on or not, and it's happening. So it's better to say, for example, I'm angry right now when you're with your team. Maybe you can do this as part of your daily scrum. This is what some Agile teams do. They check in as part of their daily scrum. You just say, I'm angry right now. And you might explain why, and you might even say you're still in with the team, even though you're angry about something at home or angry about somebody at work. And then you can all just, you can make emotions normal at work, because emotions are actually normal within you. You can make having emotional state and sharing it a normal thing instead of an exceptional thing. You can make it so instead of I'm over here and I'm angry about something and people are walking on eggshells around me and nobody wants to work with me today and they're not really sure why and it's impacting all of their performance as well as my performance and the whole team sucks today because I'm angry but I'm not expressing it in a coherent way. Instead, I can just express it in a coherent way and we can all just get on with it and the team can still be good that day. So that's the idea here. It's an observed behavior pattern of successful teams. Just making emotional state known and sharing it works with teams. We'll keep pretending that this is a good idea.
I actually wanted to expand a little bit on that because that's kind of a meaningful thing for my company. We instituted working agreements, most of which can get ignored, but one of them was we have a lot of people where you'll have 10 people in a meeting talking about some decision that needs to be made, and one guy's looking at vacation rental homes, and another person's looking for swim classes for their kid. They're not really engaged, and part of what makes not just Agile but any team work is that you have to be able to rely on the people on your team, and part of that is knowing when you can't rely on people on your team. So the one piece of this that we kind of do is, if you're in a meeting and let's say, some P1 issue came up, you say, I'm going to stay in this meeting, but I got to look at this P1 issue, so I'm kind of tuning out a little bit. So you kind of know how engaged people are or are not, and to what level they're actually committing, and they're,
Thanks, Dave. One more question?
My question was about when somebody says pass. So they say that they pass, do they say they're in?
Yeah, you say I pass, I'm in.
So they're just not being open about their emotion, but they're still checking in with the team.
Yeah, maybe you're having a problem with identifying your current emotional state. Maybe you don't want to share it right now. We're not going to coerce you to sharing your emotional state if you don't want to. We still base this intentionally designed culture on the idea of freedom. Yeah. Let's move on to another. So this is one of the seeds of an intentionally created culture for your team. We'll try another one now. So fill in the blank. What do you want? And just think to yourself, what do you want? And it's totally open-ended right now. We'll constrain it a little bit in a minute. What do you want? What's your goal? What do you seek? Maybe you have a personal goal, maybe you have a team goal, maybe you have a family goal. What is it that you want? And then why don't you have it already? If it's what you want, you should be just single-mindedly pursuing it if that's really what you want, right? So what's blocking you from having what you want? And then make believe, pretend that if you had one of these virtues, if your body was 100% filled with one of these virtues, it would eliminate the thing that's blocking you from having what you want, and you would get it. So the virtues on the list are self-awareness, integrity, courage, passion, peace, presence, self-care, fun, wisdom, and health. And this time, fill in the blank differently. Pick one of these and fill in the blank. Make believe that that's what you want, one of these virtues. If you can't think of which one to pick, just pick self-awareness. Yeah, you get the joke. It's actually not a joke. Right, and fill it. Just really fill in the blank, and you can write it down on the worksheet. Oh, thanks. Right, and what we'll do is we'll call that your personal alignment. Whatever the virtue is that you wrote down, I want virtue name. We'll call that your personal alignment. It's another piece of self-awareness. So we just did this really fast, and that's cool. It's just something to know about yourself, another element of self-awareness. I want blank. It might even be self-awareness. It might be something else. So again, as a building block of a team, we've got this atomic unit of great people. And to be great people, we've got a couple ideas that you know your current emotional state, and you can even say it out loud. That's how well you understand yourself right now. And you understand what you want. You know what you want, so you can pursue it. That's really important as a member of a team, a member of a great team. Okay, so that was the self-awareness set of protocols. And we'll go into the connection protocols. Right, so a great team, on a great team you've got freedom. Nobody coerces you to do anything. You have autonomy. You've got self-awareness. You've got self-aware team members. And you've got connection. The team members are connected into a cohesive unit. We've got some protocols for that. Some behavior patterns that we've pulled out of successful teams. And so we know this works, or at least for the next 30 minutes, we can continue pretending this works. So one is check-in, actually. So we did check-in both as a self-awareness protocol and as a way to connect with each other. And that works. We've got ask for help as a protocol to actually both know what you want and what you want help with, and to connect with other people. If you can safely ask each other for help, you can connect with each other as members of a great team. We've got intention check, which is a way to, if somebody says something or behaves in a way that you don't understand, you can ask them about that. We've got personal alignment. We just did personal alignment. And we've got investigate. You can look at the website to get all the details. You can look at the cheat sheet to get a quick intro on these. Investigate is about being curious. It's about connecting with the people on your team by just asking them questions. It's about just learning about the people on your team. You just want to know more. And yeah, it's just about asking questions like you're curious, like you're a newspaper reporter or a blogger, like you're interviewing somebody. You don't have an agenda to push. You just want to learn about the person, so you ask questions. You don't ask leading questions. You don't ask questions that are supposed to teach a lesson. You don't ask questions that have only one correct answer, and you're looking for that one correct answer. You just ask questions that are open and curious, and you want to know more. And that's it. Try not to ask questions that start with the word why, but ask any other kind of question you want. We're going to do this right now with that same group of 3 that you were checking in with. Investigate each other. If you find at any time that you can't investigate without sort of pushing an agenda, then stop investigating. Like check out or pass, or finish your investigation and have somebody else investigate. Pick one person on your group of 3 people, pick one person in your group of 3 to investigate, maybe about their personal alignment. And you could start by asking that person, what's your personal alignment, or what do you want? And let's see where that goes. So we'll do that for about 5 minutes or so. Just investigate each other in groups of 3.
First of all, is to become an advocate or executive coach. This has been my goal since I left my company because of the soul. And so the virtue that I picked from the list is courage. Because I need to have courage to position myself to stand before a crowd that probably doesn't know me, and to coach them to greatness. So,
What is this?
I introduced Agile into one of my early teams about 10 years ago, and we started a pilot project.
Yeah, learn about it, we get feedback, and learn to do better. I guess that's what retrospectives also do for teams.
What I always did my whole career is troubleshoot. So the issue is that I have difficulty solving the troubleshooting because most companies will admit they got problems. And I've been very good at closing accounts, solving problem accounts, solving technical people, money, contract issues, and walking in not knowing the technical details, technical skills. But I just got out the other day talking to somebody, watching some program, and I was like, I guess I'm a good facilitator. I can make it happen, even if I don't have the technical knowledge, business knowledge, whatever. I just enable people. So I'm afraid to step out there. I'm afraid to sell myself. Because I've never had to sell myself. I always do it now. I keep on doing it. Like you understand.
So what makes you happy?
What you're good at. Walking into an issue is problem somebody is having trouble solving and stepping into it, not knowing anything about it, learning on the fly to figure it out, getting people working together.
You get satisfaction.
Oh yeah, great satisfaction.
Right.
Does anybody have any comments on what that was like practicing investigate with each other? Was a little uncomfortable? Okay. What? It was intrusive. Oh, interesting. Okay. Anybody else?
So we were curious about how far to take.
How far did you take it? Okay, you kept going deeper and deeper. Yeah, interesting. And was that, what did that feel like?
I'm not sure we were arriving at the first time. We weren't necessarily discovering first time.
Okay. Anybody else?
So it felt like, I think with this exercise and the previous one, what really seems powerful is the self-reflection that goes in before you actually, either write it or talk. And then that kind of just opens, communication lines that just between 3 total strangers didn't exist, until maybe half an hour ago.
All right, cool. Thanks. Yeah?
So it was a little bit difficult to know what the goal of investigate was. Was it, what we ended up doing was trying to fix the problem, or like I feel whatever, like trouble because whatever. her. So we were trying to solve her problem. And I'm not sure if investigate is actually to solve the problem or to understand how she's feeling.
Yeah. Did you want them to solve the problem?
No, I don't.
Okay. Then it's not for that unless that's what she wants. A good tip on investigate is ask first. You can even ask, do you want help solving that problem? And just get an answer yes or no to make sure you're not pushing help on somebody who doesn't want it. It's really intended to connect with people, to connect with each other really, really quickly.
So I'm assuming that the reason we were told not to ask why is because it might sound accusing. Like, why was that project late?
Yeah.
I found it very difficult to avoid why, but I found that asking how was a pretty good substitute. Like, how did that project get to be late?
That's good. And I think you hit that one on the nose. And I actually just learned this last week talking to a friend who's studied therapy. This is not therapy. The reason it's not therapy is that there's no intervention. We're not telling the person to do something else. We're not telling the person to change the way they're living or behaving. So it's not therapy. We're just asking the questions. And in therapy, this is what I learned last week, questions that start with the word why usually cause the person you're talking to become defensive. So they don't lead to learning more things about the people you're talking to. They just lead to like a wall going up between you. Yeah. So that's, and you could try other questions. You could try how, or how did that go, or what was that like, or things like that. There's a short list of good question formulations in the Investigate protocol if you look it up on the website. Okay. So one thing that people often say about Investigate is, well, like you said, you had a bunch of strangers who just connected with each other pretty quickly. I think I heard, I don't know if it was you guys or somebody else, I heard somebody talking about, I think it was you guys over there, heard you talking about this was like a scripted way to connect with each other, and it kind of is. It's a little bit, it's observations of teams doing this and connecting with each other really quickly and then becoming aligned with each other really quickly. And it's a way to reproduce that state in other teams, right? So it is kind of scripted. It's kind of why it's called a protocol, or sometimes I call it a recipe or a checklist. It's also designed for people like me who weren't born with natural social skills. And I kind of do need a script to follow to connect with people, and a lot of us do. Maybe half of us do, and half of us don't. So for the half of us who don't have that built-in social sense, we've got a way to do it now, and this can help us all connect to each other in a high-performance team. So that's what this is about. Sometimes people call this the seduction protocol. Like, it just feels really good to have people asking questions about you, to have people like being really, really curious about you, and you start sharing intimate things, and it feels really nice. Sometimes I call it the friendship protocol. Like you said, it very quickly led to a sense that you knew each other well. And you can do it with new people, or you can use it to quickly get back into that state if you've been away from your team for a while.
I think it works, well, it worked for us. Sounds like three people who are talking has outgoing personalities. What if one person is extrovert and another one is introvert? An introvert will not like answering those questions.
Maybe.
Will that work in that situation?
Yeah, and it always works. And here's part of why it always works. You've got the freedom to check out if you don't want to participate. Nobody can make you be investigated. You only do it if you want to. If you really don't want to be investigated by that person, you don't have to. But if you're open to it and you give it a try, and like you pretend that it's a good idea because you've heard of these hundreds of other teams that do it, and it's one of their success patterns, one of their behavior patterns, you could try it out and see what happens, even if it's with somebody that you're not so sure about.
Richard, is investigate only about investigating people, or do you want to investigate facts and projects and history about?
Yeah, you can investigate anything. I had, so I taught a short class on this at one of the Techstars companies a week or two ago. And they started using some of these protocols with each other in their team. And they told me that they started using Investigate as a tool for code review. So it makes it easy for them to ask questions about each other's code without sounding accusing or without people getting defensive about their code. And that, they said that was working really well.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, so let's see. So we looked at behavior patterns for freedom, behavior patterns for self-awareness, a couple behavior patterns for connection with each other. And those are the building blocks of a great team. And once you've got this team of people connected to each other in a friendship kind of way, because really people on a great team act like they're friends. And these protocols can very, very quickly build that feeling of friendship amongst people. Then you start to make stuff, right? And then, so we've got these productivity protocols. Very efficient ways, well, these are all very efficient ways to do things. So a very efficient way to get self-awareness is to check in with yourself or think about your personal alignment. Very efficient way to build that sense of, that feeling of connection, that feeling of friendship with each other is the protocols for connection, like Investigate and like checking in with each other. So we've got these protocols to very efficiently become productive. Decider is a really fast way to make total 100% consensus decisions with each other. It just goes fast. We often play at the Agile Dojo before Agile New England, we often play a game called Decider Speed Game. And we see how many total unanimous, total 100% consensus decisions people can make with each other in like 2 minutes. And it's often a surprisingly large number. So we got Decider, we've got Resolution as a very, very fast way to figure out why you can't make a decision together and what it would take to get somebody in or just drop a proposal. We've got Perfection Game as a really great way to ask for feedback on something. I often use Perfection Game as a way to do retrospectives at the end of a sprint or at the end of a project. I heard, I think, Peter, you told me tonight about using Perfection Game as a way to do a retrospective for an event. Yeah, and it was very effective. So it's just something you can do anytime. You could play Perfection Game on code. You could play Perfection Game on an idea. You could play Perfection Game on performance or an object, on anything that you want to, anything where you want to get other people's help on it to make it better. I'm actually going to ask you for help at the end of the session. So I know you're going to fill in the evaluation form for the session for Agile New England. I'm also going to ask you to play Perfection Game with me on the session. And on the front of the handout, there's a URL you can use to give me feedback via Perfection Game. I can make this session the best it can be. So these are really good protocols for productivity, to be really efficient and to get, now that you've got this team that's cohesive and in the state of shared vision, to do great things together. And of course, you can do Scrum or anything else as a set of tools once you've got this team that's in that state of shared vision with each other. And that works. And then we've got one protocol to make sure that we're playing the rules of the game, right? So if we agree with each other that we're going to use core protocols, any of them or all of them, to be an effective team, to be effective individuals, to be a great team getting great results, we got one protocol that makes it safe to remind people to do the other protocols the right way. So if somebody's doing Investigate and starts asking questions that start with why, you can go protocol check, try not asking questions that start with why. Or if somebody checks in with one of the hundreds of emotion names that are on the nonviolent communication list, you might go, protocol check, I'm not really good at that amazing list of emotions. Can you stick with mad, glad, sad, or afraid? Right, so it's just a really safe way to do that. Nobody will get upset with you if you call protocol check. It's just, we agreed to follow these protocols. Let's actually do that. And that's easy. So all of this stuff was about efficiently, quickly getting a team into a state of shared vision or getting a team back into that state of shared vision really fast. Because we know that being in that state of shared vision is what being a great team is. Being in that state of kind of one mind, seeing as one, thinking as one, totally efficient, no friction between each other as teammates. There's so many weird sayings that people use that you all know, like all the wood behind the arrow or whatever. All that stuff. That's what being in a state of shared vision is. And these 11 ideas, these are behavior patterns from successful teams that you guys can try. This is sort of like a step up from the Agile Manifesto. This is more than just some values and principles. This is specific behavior patterns that successful teams exhibit and that you can use. This is one way to get your team into that same kind of state. Agile by itself doesn't necessarily solve anything depending on whose data you're looking at. Even the latest Standish report, even the latest Standish chaos report says that Agile isn't the one thing that leads to successful teams. Trainers like me still show the slide from the Standish 2012 report that Agile is 3 times more likely to, your project is 3 times more likely to succeed and 3 times less likely to fail. But in this year's report, that's not what they say. They say different things lead to successful teams. And in the Gama Sutra study of 300 software teams, they say it's all about these cultural aspects. Sure, there are some technical things and practical things, but it's not just the methodology you use, it's not just Agile, it's really about shared vision, it's really about the culture on your team. Yeah, so this was all about intentional culture design. This was all about, so what we did tonight was look at some of the elements of intentionally designing the culture that you might want for your team. Maybe we planted a few seeds of a better culture you might practice with your teams here tonight. Maybe we'll cultivate a better culture. I like the word cultivate because it's about growing and culture is about growing. And when you cultivate something, you're doing it intentionally. You're deciding on the behaviors and the practices that you want your team to do. It's intentional. You don't have to just get together with a group of people and follow the default patterns. I kind of think of it as the least common denominator culture, where you do just enough that you don't piss each other off. You do just enough that you get along. But that's not enough to be a great team. So you could try some of these ideas. This bias toward positivity. You could pretend that these ideas might help your team. You could try them out, maybe even after you leave this room. But you don't have to. It's up to you. If you want to learn more, I can help, and my friends in the Greatness Guild can help. You could look at these websites, the coreprotocols.org, the Greatness Guild website, my website. You could check out these books. Somebody has one of these books up there, the book from Jim and Michelle McCarthy. It's a great book. Everybody should read it. I've got a small book that you might want to check out as well. It's a more concise version of the core protocols. I would love to share this at your workplace. If you invite me, I will come. I don't even necessarily want to get paid for that. I'll just come and do it at lunchtime or something and share some of these ideas with the people you work with or the people you volunteer with or whatever your organization is. We'd love to help you any way you want. If you want some coaching on this kind of stuff, if you want to attend a class, we do classes ranging from half a day to 5 days. The 5-day classes are taught by Jim and Michelle McCarthy. They're really great classes. I don't make any money if you go to one of their classes. I just want to support spreading these ideas. I think these are great ideas. So that's it. Thank you very much for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
One question. The exercises we did here, I think, were pretty good at showing, kind of building rapport, so that was excellent. Yeah. On the other hand, could you give us an example of how these might help actually deal with conflict resolution? And so you had a group where there was a disagreement on the way how to accomplish a task, or some other critical topic, how would you structure, how would these come into play, or what would be an example of a sequence of events that would use these to resolve a conflict?
Okay, so what about conflict resolution? So I kind of have two ways to answer that question. One way is if you've got a team that's really operating using the core protocols, they're way less likely to have conflicts. And in fact, they're sort of obligated, if they're really practicing core protocols, they're kind of obligated to temporarily check out if they can't engage with each other in a productive way. They're also kind of obligated to share emotional state with each other, to actually make it okay to say, I'm angry about what you're saying, I'm angry that you have that idea and it's different from my idea.
Let's say, resolve a disagreement.
Yeah.
Instead of conflict. But I think it ought to be done this way, she thinks it ought to be done that way.
Sure. So very, very specifically, decider protocol is the way you resolve disagreements. And get this, there's a protocol called resolution protocol that tells you exactly how to resolve that conflict if you've got an idea that people can't agree on. And if you really can't agree on it, if you really can't figure out this one or that one, maybe your team shouldn't be doing any of them. Or maybe your team should be doing both of them. And you can see which one is actually better observationally.
Richard? I'm a little confused about what the manager's role would be if there is a manager for such a team. With people having so much freedom and autonomy, if they keep passing and keep checking out, perhaps how do you manage people if they're allowed to not be there or not do things?
That's a great question. How do you manage people if they're allowed not to be there? Right. So, has anybody been a manager of people who don't want to be there? Do you get great results from them? No. So one thing you could do is let them not be there. Give them the freedom to do that. Don't coerce them into doing things they don't want to do. Another thing is, well, once they know they really have that kind of freedom, maybe they'll be more in. It's kind of like me personally. As soon as you tell me I have to do something, I don't want to do it. But if you let me decide what I want to do, cool. Even if it's the thing you're about to tell me, I'm totally in with that.
For example, if people have personal issues, and they need to plan vacation, they have a child or spouse who's having problems, and they basically are checking out for legitimate personal reasons.
Yeah.
You're still not getting much productivity if you don't really have them working as an employee.
Yeah, so also if you find that you're passing frequently, or if you're checking out frequently, there's probably something wrong, and you probably need help, or you don't belong on that team, right? And you can, people can be removed from teams. Here's another important idea related to all this. There's, I don't know if it's exactly a pattern, but it's a theme called your boss is your best customer. And it's all related to this, and I think it might even be written in the Software for Your Head book, this idea that your boss is your best customer, and you're on a team. You're getting paid to accomplish some goal. You should be acting like your boss is your customer, and you want your customer to be really happy. So what would you do as a service provider to make sure your boss is really happy? Well, you'd make sure you're there, you try to be there, you try to resolve the problems that are happening at home because there are problems that are happening at work as well. You try to make sure you're engaged with your teammates, or you might just remove yourself from the team if your boss is your best customer. Maybe you need a different best customer.
Do teams like this typically have managers, or are they considered self-managed teams?
Yeah, so it's like the job of the manager is to build a great team. And this is one way to do it. A lot of the ideas from Agile are ways to do it if you're a manager. When I'm a manager, I want my team to be using core protocols and to be a fully functional, amazing Scrum team. Right? That's what I would want. And so I would try to build that. And if I give them everything they need to do that, they're going to make me really happy. So there's a role for managers, yeah. And the role for managers is, well, to build great teams, and as managers working together, as a team of managers, to be the best team they can be. Maybe using these same ideas. You're welcome. Yeah?
There seems to be a presumption of good faith actors as the foundation for this. How does it hold up in the face of bad actors?
How does it hold up in the face of bad actors? It's sort of similar to David's question. If you're really practicing these together, you're probably going to be good actors together. If you're really doing this together, you're going to become friends. And friends are usually, real friends are not bad actors to each other. Now, the other side of that is if there are people on your team who aren't in agreement about using these behavior patterns, you should be careful about using some of these behavior patterns. Because in the default company culture, it's really not okay to share your emotional state fully, right? And it's really not okay to say you don't know things and ask for help. You get punished, right? So if other people aren't playing by these same behavior patterns, you need to be careful about it as well. Other people may be bad actors and use the information that you're sharing against you. So you do have to be careful.
But that sort of presumes you've gotten a little bit of momentum going. As you're trying to get into it, the answer of you need a good culture to create a good culture, if you're not there yet.
Sure. Okay, so if you're not there yet, try practicing this together. Well, so the idea, here's an answer. Try practicing these protocols together in a safe place. So maybe if it were people at Constant Contact, maybe come down to this room and make a safe place for yourself to practice these ideas together without being disrupted by anybody else. Do it for half a day or a few days and see what happens. See if you really coalesce into an amazing team together. Go off-site somewhere with your team and create a safe place where you can practice this together. And you can actually gauge whether people are in. And if they're not in, that's okay. They don't have to be. We're not going to coerce anybody to do this. But you'll quickly find out whether everybody's in. And chances are they will be in with you on it. And they won't be bad actors when you practice it together and show that it's safe and that you will get better results together. And that's really what it's about. You get better results together, and you can gauge that objectively. People can choose to be in on better results or not. If they're not, that's good to know, because maybe they don't belong on your team, and you want them to know it, and you want to know it. Yeah?
What would you do with a person that outcodes everybody 10 to 1 and doesn't accept protocols?
That outcodes everybody 10 to 1?
Yeah.
And won't try any of these ideas?
On the floor and will not accept what you standing out on.
Yeah, then it's kind of like, what do you want as a boss? Do you want an individual who's 10 times better, or do you want a team that's 2,000 times better?
What if you're not the boss?
And what if you're not the boss?
Well, the question is...
Try communicating with the boss.
Well, so the sad part is I'm the boss.
Yeah.
And I do want
So you can do something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I do want a team. And,
Yeah.
But I'm kind of looking for your take. What would, if
Yeah.
I would be the boss, and the individual one
Yeah.
out of 20 is like that, would you just let him go?
I might. If the rest of the team would be more productive without that person.
Well, collective bargaining is we're losing the person that, does the job of 10 people.
Do you need the other 10 people?
I need a team.
Then you need
I'm not sure whether you want that person and only that person, or if you want the rest of the team, or if you want that person and the team. What do you want?
I want a team and I want peace.
Okay. What kinds of things can you do to obtain that? I mean, what can you do?
And that's my question too. It's either...
Yeah, so you can try getting that person in on these kinds of ideas. You can invite that person to a safe place to practice these ideas together. The person doesn't have to do it. I heard an HBR the Harvard Business Review podcast the other day, and somebody had exactly this question, and the author they were interviewing said, maybe you should isolate that person so they don't disrupt the rest of the team. So the team can be the 2000x productive team or the 10x productive team or whatever. And that person can just do things that you manage one-on-one, isolate that person, still get that person's productivity if you really value it, and let the rest of the team be an even more amazingly productive team. So it's an idea. David?
Yeah, so I have a lot of, I'm pretty active in like the LinkedIn groups with Agile, and one of the arguments that I disagree with the most with other people who tend to be, Agile coaches that are not committed to one company for a long time, soaking in it, is the point of accountability and performance reviews and stuff like that. And, they think there's no place for performance reviews. The whole team should be treated as a whole. And I feel that you kind of, unless you're in one of the 15 companies that have done the magical thing, where there's no managers, etc., there's only 15 or so companies in the world that have done that. To me, the answer is making supporting the team part of their goals. So if that's what's going to help, make sure that their goals reflect that supporting the team, the productivity of the team, is more important than supporting the productivity of the one person.
Yeah, and you could try that. Your boss is your best customer idea. You could print that out and even give it to people. It's a really good read. It'd probably be a good read for that person. And maybe that person being a member of the productive team would be a way of giving your boss what you want.
So, the places where I've encountered the friction has not been usually within the team. Getting the team of developers working together has never, almost never been an issue. It's dealing with others outside the team. In these days, you would call it product owner is sometimes more than a team. That is, he's got that marketing hat and the marketing goals isn't the same as developers or even the QA. In years past, it was sometimes between the developers and QA team. Know how to solve that problem, but I've never figured out that well to solve the issues of getting unreasonable demands from a marketing organization, in spite of Scrum or Kanban or whatever. What's your thoughts on that? On just getting outside the teams and the frictions.
Okay. Well, one thing you said was product owner, and product owner in the game Scrum, product owner is part of the team. So you definitely want that person being a good team member.
They have to perceive it, and that's really where the issue is. And so maybe that's what your answer is. The product owner has to be perceived by themselves as part of the team.
Yeah. I was coaching a team last week, and it was really refreshing that they had a product owner who really felt like he was part of the team and wanted the team to be successful via his actions. So you want somebody like that, playing product owner. And let's say this is outside the scope of core protocols and this kind of stuff, but if your team is really good at Scrum, you can use the game Scrum to get your stakeholders in with you and show them what you can deliver when and give them decent forecasts and all that stuff. How long do we have? 8:30?
Yeah, so 10 minutes.
10 more minutes?
Okay.
You're not yet saved by the
Richard, question. You said nobody gets coerced in this.
Yeah.
However, I sense a little bit of emotional judo going on here, in that people are supposed to be very open about what they're doing when they're checking out, for example.
Sure.
Such that, is there a tendency for, essentially, for them to be driven towards, I guess I'll call it compliance, for lack of a better word for the moment, by peer pressure? Everyone knows I just checked out and walked out of the room. Everyone knows the context of what I did that, when I did that.
Yeah.
So is there a tendency for that pressure to drive people into cooperating effectively?
I'd cast it maybe a little bit differently, but
That's fine.
There's pressure if you already feel like you're members of a cohesive team, if you already feel like you're in that friendship state, that shared vision kind of state. If somebody checks out, right, then when you're done with that meeting or whatever it was that you were doing, you might go find that person and ask if it's okay to talk about it. And that might be a way of reconnecting. I've actually experienced this on teams that operate using core protocols myself. I've been the perpetrator of making people angry. You know, and I really shouldn't say it that way. I've been the perpetrator of doing something that caused people to feel angry. And just having the ability to investigate each other, and we know what investigate means with each other, and we feel safe asking and answering questions with each other, that was a way to bring us back together. They still weren't happy about the things that I did as sort of a de facto leader on that team, but we're all back in with each other. So again, you could pretend that it's a good idea, pretend that these work. You could practice them with your real teams, and chances are they'll work for you too.
Okay, so I have a scenario. I work as a project manager, or I was trying project manager, and with every single iteration, there's an average of at least 16 or 20 items that are in flight that are not completed. And I struggle to understand why. So as it gets closer to the end of the iteration, I look around and I reach out to the product owner and the managers of those team members and I say, is this okay? Is this acceptable? What do you think? And they all say yes. Like my initial inclination is to go to the manager and say, hey, why is your resource not capable of finishing this item? What got in the way? Because I keep asking if there are blockers and I get no blockers, so I have to trust them, right? But if their managers are totally okay with that with every single iteration, well, how can I ever expect an iteration to actually be complete and therefore have team morale get boosted, for lack of a better term, with every single iteration?
It sounds like a broken team with broken managers. I think my answer is you can't expect that to be a great team if the expectations on that team are that they don't have to be great. They're allowed not to get stuff done all the time. They're allowed to miss every deadline that they're offered.
Right.
So getting stuff done and being successful is not something that team's boss wants. That team's not going to be successful.
I can't leave my kid on my own party, but if I can't go to the manager and say, hey, fix this, who else besides the manager is going to help me help the team?
Yeah, well, in the game Scrum, you got your Scrum Master who's supposed to be doing that, but also the managers are supposed to be doing that.
Right, because that's the next step, is my correct? To look up for the
Yeah. So we've kind of gone outside the scope of core protocols here. This is kind of like a Scrum team's question, and I think your teams need help. I think your managers there need help. Their expectations are way too low.
What are you doing tomorrow for lunch?
I'm going on a nature walk with a sketch pad. But I might be free next week if you invite me.
Oh, yeah. So are there keys which make the core protocols not get or and say it differently, or there telltale signs where you can see these teams and core protocols don't make sense?
So are there teams where core protocols don't make sense? Is there science or something to help you decide where they're applicable? I'm certain there are teams where this doesn't make sense. We're careful to call it one way to get teams into that state of shared vision. Honestly, if you do Scrum really rigorously, you can get teams into a state of shared vision. If you've got a great product owner with a cohesive product backlog and you're all aligned with that product backlog and you've got good facilitation around that and you get stuff done every sprint and you have a Scrum Master who helps you do relentlessly amazing retrospectives and the team is getting better and better every sprint, then maybe that's all you need. I find in practice that that's really hard. And if you look at like the Tuckman model of team formation, is it forming, storming, norming, performing? By my own observations, that takes like 6 months to get to performing, if you ever get there, and most teams don't get there. So you could experiment doing Scrum and good retrospectives and maybe get there or maybe not. Or you could start with something like core protocols and just build a great team and then overlay Scrum on top of that and have a great team that has a way to organize themselves and be productive.
Thank you.
You're welcome. One more question.
So really interesting. Oh, better. Very interesting, and I can see lots of ways to use the core protocols on my team. One of my questions was slightly outside of the core protocols, and that's the importance of having roles played in addition to the core protocols. So several times tonight you mentioned in passing the importance of like leadership in certain contexts. So it's important for effective teams to have leaders who effectively use the core protocol.
Sure.
In my team, we have someone playing the role of a consensus builder very often, and sometimes people just play the role of an icon of class or an naysayer, just these different roles. Are roles common in successful teams, and do they work in conjunction with core protocol?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. So another conversation I had with a friend last week, he was talking about something that I hadn't been able to articulate quite that well, and let's see if I can try to reproduce some of what he was telling me. Everybody has their own genius, something that they're so great at that they might not even know it because it's so easy to them. And everybody around them knows that they have that skill, even if they don't realize it themselves. On teams that are really cohesive, what happens is those elements of individual genius come out. And you're the leader in that area. It's evident to everybody on your cohesive team that's your area just because you're clearly the best at it, and we all need you for that skill. That kind of, you could call it a role, you could just call it a designation or an area of expertise, that it just seems to become self-evident on teams where people know each other really intimately well. And that's part of the sort of the multiplicative effect of being on such a cohesive team. It's not just the 8 or 10 people together doing 8 or 10 people's worth of work, it's the 8 or 10 people multiplying their individual talents together and getting even more out of each other.